Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gentle Business Space podcast. I'm Fabi, I'm a systems expert and coach, and today I want to talk a little bit more about your ideal work week. What caused me to bring this topic up into today's episode was a post that I saw recently around somebody sharing a post, something around steal my ideal work week calendar schedule. And there's nothing wrong with that as such, but it somehow annoyed me because I know that a few years ago when I was really overwhelmed and struggling, I would have 100% gone for that, thinking that this outside advice will fix all my problems. It's that full sense of productivity, of if only, well, it must work for them, so surely if I adopt that, it's going to work for me as well. And I think it's something that we do quite often, and I still do that as well. I think we all do it, is when something doesn't feel right within our business, we look for that outside advice of surely they have the answer, and if I just follow what they're doing, then that's going to work for me as well. And I think especially with something like organizing ourselves and that constant pressure of if I just get myself properly organized, if I just have the ideal work week, then I'm going to be more productive. And yes, your ideal work week is so important, but the emphasis is on it's not theirs. So what works for somebody else is not going to work for you. Yes, we can get inspiration, and I still look for these things, but from different reasoning these days. These days I will click on something like that for curiosity. It's not okay how they're doing things, but the danger is that we can get derailed and say, oh, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I'm doing it all wrong. I think it's sometimes that inner pressure of what I'm doing is wrong, somebody else must know better. And then we get so caught up in doing things the way other people work that we forget about ourselves and our own needs and the way we like to work. And I think there's so much around your 25-hour work week and this, and only work 4 hours a day or only work 4 days a week. And all of that, and again, nothing of that is wrong, and we can be curious about it and get some insights, but I think the bottom line is that it needs to work for ourselves, and we each want something different. So your business is different, your vision of how you want to work, your energy levels, the way you structure your day, your commitments outside of your business are different. So we all work differently and we all want different things. So the ideal calendar really needs to represent that. So from myself, it's still ongoing. I haven't completely figured it out yet. I'm still working on my ideal work week calendar. It's improved majorly over the years, but it's also an ongoing process. It's not nothing that ever finishes because we develop, we change the way we're working, we change where we are within our lives. Our life phases change. And our work calendar is going to represent that. So now I can't tell you this is how you need to structure your week to be successful. That's not going to work. And I think the bottom line is that we need to come back to what's your version of an easeful week, what feels right. And developing that takes a little bit of time. It takes tweaking, takes a little bit of trial and error. As I said, I've been working on mine for a while. I change things all the time because I try out, okay, maybe I just talked in a different podcast around batching. So sometimes it's around, trying out, okay, this time slot for appointments, this is for client work, this is for working on my business, getting that balance right. And then I try it for a few weeks and then maybe it doesn't feel right. And a lot of the time, what I still notice is that we overschedule, that we put too much into our week. And I do that all the time as well. So it's trial and error of noticing, okay, what feels right? And most importantly as well, how do you feel? How's your energy around that? So, I don't know, running a workshop or running a workshop on a Friday afternoon. Maybe that sounds really great in theory. Maybe that's even what some clients wanted. And you try it and you notice, okay, no, actually Friday afternoons, my energy is really, really low. That doesn't work for me. Same thing as batching. Again, I talk about this in a different podcast episode. But maybe there's this, maybe batching on a Tuesday. Maybe that feels really right. That's the right spot for it. But also having the flexibility to maybe move that if something comes up on a Tuesday. So creating our calendar with a little bit of space, and really being clear on what do we need to put in our calendar. And first of all, also building it around what's nourishing us. So start with what's nourishing you. What do you need to take care of yourself? What do you need, in terms of breaks? And in the mornings, how do you want your mornings to look like? How you want your evenings to look like? Is there a workout class or a relaxation class you like to go to? Or your daily walk, scheduling those in first and then building the work structure around it. And then maybe it's 1 or 2 days of appointments. Does that work for you? Or maybe you prefer having a couple of appointments each day and then mixing it up with working on your business, having that balance. And again, that's around trying it out. It's around maybe batching a few things, tasks and appointments, creating a little bit more space, letting go of some tasks, and then allowing yourself time with that. So it doesn't happen overnight. Changing your schedule, your ideal work week creating that doesn't happen just quickly. We can't just suddenly let go of everything, even though sometimes we want to. But how can we make those gradual changes? How can we implement something maybe each week or each month that brings us a little bit closer? For me, it was noticing that, and it starts with reviewing and really noticing what's working and what doesn't work. What's causing you stress at the moment. Are you happy with how things are, and what might need tweaking? So starting with that review of what's really going on. How do things feel? Do you regularly burn out because it's really stressful and your weeks are just too packed? Do you have time to take time off? Do you enjoy your week? Do you look forward to the next day? I really noticed that the other night. I went to bed and I thought, I haven't had that feeling of dread in a very, very long time. And that was huge for me. Because I'm in charge of my day and I've learned to structure it in a way that supports me. And that might not be conventional, but there is pressure of you should be working how many hours a day. But I also learned what's my capacity? What's my capacity of client delivery work? How do I prefer to work? Is it one-to-ones or groups or a bit of back-end delivery? And how much of that a day can I do before I get overwhelmed? So it's, again, getting to know yourself, getting to know what's working for you, what isn't, and what you need. So I invited to allow a little bit of time of really reflecting on that, reviewing what's working, and then making those gradual changes of step by step, really looking at where do you want to get to. It's, again, connecting a little bit to that vision of how would your ideal work week look like? What would feel nice? Is it 4 hours a day? Is it maybe 6 hours a day, but only 4 days a week? Is it having regular breaks? So whatever it is, what does that look like? Planning in time off. Do you have that in your calendar? Does your work, the way you're working, allow you to do that? These are all things we can reflect on, and then making those gradual changes and shifts, batching a few tasks, appointments, creating some white space in our diary. So it doesn't need to be all full. It doesn't need to be packed with tasks, so that if something comes up, if we're ill, if we want to take some time off, there's space to move things around. So whatever that looks like for you, that could be different. But that's exactly why we can't just copy somebody else's work week. Yes, we can get inspiration. We can see how other people are doing things, just again to get inspiration with curiosity. But usually copying, in my experience, doesn't work very well. We can try bits of it, we can try it out, see what's working, and then shift, make gradual changes. So I'd love to know, what would your ideal work week look like? What changes do you need to make to create a little bit more space, to make it more easeful? Or is it already there? Have you already made those shifts? And I'd love to know what impact that has to how you're working and how you're showing up. And what changes do you still want to make? So as I said, usually it's not a once done, completed process. It's an ongoing thing. It also depends on your stage in life, your stage in your business, other commitments, what's going on. As I said, kind of what's going on within your life. So it's not like I've done this, I don't have to look at it again. It will shift over time, and that's absolutely fine. And I think if we keep that awareness on it and how we're spending our time and how it's affecting us and our well-being and how it's working for our business, then we can gradually start getting a balance right that's working for us personally, to your individual goals, to your individual vision and what you want to create. And then we can have that awareness and shift gradually when we need to. But I think really it's really important that, if you're not at that space and if you're feeling really overwhelmed with your schedule and your calendar and everything at the moment, take a step back, review what's working, what's not working, and then start to make very gradually small changes. We don't have to change everything overnight. Start to make gradual changes towards the way that you would like to work. That would be your ideal. And then take one small step at a time to shift. Maybe it's shifting the way you're delivering. Maybe it's shifting how you structure your day. So there's so many different opponents that we can gradually make changes to. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode today. As always, I'd love to know your insights, your takeaways. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your ideal work week looks like. We can inspire each other without copying. What made a huge difference to you and the way you're working. And what would you like to change? So let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining. I hope it was helpful. And I will see you again for another episode. Take care.